ask questions while I'm doing this demo. It's so good to see you. It's been a while. And as you know, I paint also in oil. So I was a little bit nervous thinking, okay, I'm switching back and forth, oil, watercolor, but my whole style doesn't change much. And we guys all know the style. The style is just throw paint. That's it. Just throw paint around. So if you hear some little booming noises, because I'm not quite familiar with this whole microphone system. We're getting there. Please feel free to shout out if you have any questions. But mainly, I will demo painting this person here. And why I love this photo is because there's a lot of movement. There's this fabric flowing everywhere. Let me show you. I don't know if you guys see that. Here's the reference.
Turn it towards us. Just turn it towards us. Towards us. Turn it towards us.
Ah!
There you go. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That is the reference. See? That's Amy. She's a favorite model of mine, and she's also one of my students, so I always use her either for a model or for this. She's great. So we have a lot of color, a lot of movement, and every time I start a painting, I spend a lot of time figuring out what to paint and picking the right reference photo. I'm sure you guys all do that. You're all professional. Everybody's amazing here in this room, so there's nothing new I will tell you. I'm sure you all know all this. But in particular, my style in particular, and this whole technique that I will show you is very free. And in every single workshop with my students, I always tell them, forget about thinking, forget about analyzing, and they always ask me for a formula or some science equation. There's zero formulas, there's no rhyme, no reason, but I think that comes with experience. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And really, you will pretty much engage only your, I guess, which part? Right part of the brain? But anyway, so lots of confidence is what I always teach. Lots of confidence, bold brush strokes, and no mistakes. There are no mistakes in watercolor. So in this particular case, there are never mistakes in watercolor. Actually, I asked one of my students to bring a painting that I thought it was all garbage. And I thought, that's not at all. I'll show you how to revive a dead painting. There's many ways to revive a dead painting, and one of the ways is to throw paint around. Really, that's my style. So anyway, we don't have much time, so I'm going to go real quick. So this is a 24 by 18 by 24, and the paper is, I'm not quite sure, I think it is, I know it's 140 pounds, but yes. So I just throw a lot of water. Some people use a spray bottle. I just use my 2-inch brush that I love, the flat, and I throw lots of water to kind of get me going. And I love starting with the background, everything that's around the main subject, which is pretty much her face. I'm going to focus on her face. I know already where I'm going with this. So also a lot of things change midway. Even if you decided, oh, that's going to be my plan. I'm going to plan this to be my focal point, but sometime mid-painting, things do change. So feel free to switch directions. So I just threw a lot of water, and I will start with the background and just watch what I mean by saying throwing paint around. My palette is really messy. I hardly ever wash it. So there's paint from last year, for sure. Seriously, yeah, because you get these amazing colors in here that are just a combination of this, a combination of that. You cannot get with a nice clean palette. So don't worry too much. There's zero worry. It's all fun. I'm just making these big puddles right now. So really grabbing alizarin crimson. There is something else, some dirt from last year, and a little bit of blue. And I'm gonna very, very quickly start popping this kind of medium value. I like to start with medium value. I know watercolor is light to dark. I just skip the light part. And we're just going with the medium value. Yeah, no worries, remember? And things are just, and also another important thing that I always stress in my workshops is don't copy your photograph. I always want to take the reference to the next level and interpret it, really interpret it your own way. And sometimes just surprise yourself. You don't even have to have an actual plan of action. You can seriously just completely not even think about it. And certain things that are somewhat mistakes, I think they're not. They're just wonderful little surprises. So right now I'm going to get a little bit darker because, as we know, watercolor does dry lighter. So I will just throw a bunch of darks here. And yeah, my way of painting is quite messy, so things start flying around. And don't worry about going into your subject. I know we are so worried about, oh, that's the drawing. She's messing up the drawing. She can't see it. Now, don't worry. I will lose the drawing for sure in the next 15 minutes, so that drawing doesn't matter. But generally, there is a rule when you're painting a figure. Make sure that your drawing is nice and solid, so even if you lose it, you can still have some suggestion or some idea of what it is. So I'm throwing a little bit more paint, a little bit more darks. Sorry, my voice. I'm nervous, believe it or not. But it's good I don't see you. It's so dark here, so it's just like I'm alone. I'm by myself. That does help. So I can really go crazy here with all my paint. So as you can see, it has nothing to do with the reference photo where I'm starting here. It's all very much dark and going into this tone of purples and reds, and I like that. So I will just keep it probably in that theme. And you can, throw in a bunch of sparks, spatter here, spatter there. And now we're going into her face. Now, what I always stress is forget the edges. I did say that, but I'm going to repeat it throughout the whole demo again and again and again. Forget all the edges that you see. You can just lose half of them, if not 3/4. They're not that important. What's important is to have variety. You should have some sharpness here and there, but not everywhere. So now I'm starting to put some color and focusing on her face a little bit. So I'm mixing skin tones, so add yellow, alizarin. It's a little bit too red, but we just want to do one big. As you can see, I'm not filling in. This is not paint by number style. We're not filling in. I'm just throwing paint here and there. So, life would be so easy if we paint by numbers, wouldn't it? But we don't. And I do say, yeah, we like to interpret reality rather than copy it. It's just too boring. Why do you want to really copy everything you see? Let's take it to the next level. So we want to create excitement, and that's my goal usually with my work. So I want to create more movement and motion and all of this good stuff that we all try to communicate in our paintings. If you guys can't hear me, or if you want to ask a question right midway of painting, please feel free. This is a interactive demo.
Lyudmila, do you always start with a drawing that's done that well?
No. Most of the time the drawing is very loose. If it's a person, it will be well drawn. And I always say that's an exception to the rule. If it's a landscape, hardly any drawing. But if it's a human, especially kind of a portrait like this, almost a portrait, I would definitely make sure that at least I know where my main features are and where things are. So that's why this one is a little
And
bit.
in the end, do you leave some of your pencil lines?
Yeah, I never erase. I've tried to even erase my pencil lines. Somehow they can't be erased.
You always paint it flat?
With a flat surface, no, I sometimes kind of have a little bit of a tilt, like 15 degree, 30 degree. But in this case, I think, oh, you guys don't see any color, do you? It's almost like black and white. That's a lot of color that I'm using here, but yeah. Okay, I'll try to make it a little bit more saturated probably. So let's see. So I'm just trying to throw some color here. See how all the edges are pretty much gone? You don't know where everything is. But again, back to the drawing. I'm sticking to this big brush for a while. Towards the end, when I'm getting into the more of the detail, I'll probably switch to another brush, but I use this quite a lot. So we pop some color in the face. We haven't gotten anywhere here. Let's see, maybe a little bit more color per hand. So not really filling in. As you can see, there's my drawing, but I'm not filling in where the pencil is. It's just a general direction where things are, some ideas. That's gonna make a very nice flowy painting. And speaking of flowy, I'm gonna now mix a nice red color for this car she's folding. I don't know if you guys can tell. Oh, you can. Okay, so here is that nice, beautiful red. I don't weigh too much. I don't use hair dryers. Kind of a just direct, very much direct approach. So whatever happens, my theory is whatever happens, if there are blooms and crazy things happening with watercolor, that is watercolor. That's the whole thing. That's what watercolor does. It creates blooms and flourishes and bubbles and whatever you want. So I like that. I don't know who came up with the theory that blooms are not acceptable. I think that's wrong. That is kind of limiting the beauty of this medium. And this medium, as we all know, wow, that looks so black and white. Anyway, this medium looks it's so fluid that we want to really keep it fluid like that. So I'm just throwing a little bit of color here. This is like pure red, whatever. I'm just mixing some of the orange, some of the cad red, kind of just pump this majorly red color right away. You know, we have all these dry brush, we have dry, wet on wet, all of the above, all at once. So, and immediately I'm just popping in some shadow color here. So my puddles are really big and watery. Starting artists are afraid to mix such big puddles. They just work a little bit here, a little bit there. Just don't be afraid. I think you can use one shadow color for everything. And have some nuances. Yeah.
All the painting up every now and then, I'm having a hard time seeing the colors.
I know, it's very,
Just tilt it up.
like this. See the color?
Yeah.
Nothing to do with what's over there. I mean, it's completely different. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, just you guys shout and I'll move things. I'll show you. But I'm now looking at where my shadow is and always squint your eyes.
What weight paper is that?
This is 140 Arches.
Okay.
Yeah. Just adding a little bit of shadow here. I'm looking at the shadow. So open your eyes. I try to squint my eyes all the time, really, when I'm painting, because That's how you see the big picture. And that is the most important. In the beginning, forget the detail. I don't even look at my subject as an actual subject. I just see abstract shapes, really. So that's all I'm thinking about, of all these abstract shapes, squint your eyes, and the big picture. Big picture is it. Once you get that big picture going, everything else is just the dessert. I always say the little detail at the end is just the dessert, and it's easy. That is the easy part, but the big picture is harder for most of us to see. So, so I'm just grabbing a little bit now, the green. Okay, this is already dry, but we're just gonna add some of this color. And I always encourage limited palettes. We don't want to go too crazy on our palettes. So even though my reference photo has these kind of a lime green, I'll probably use more of a turquoise to kind of stay in this theme of purplish. I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to use green with red and purple. Then it becomes like a salad. So it just becomes like a salad. Okay, so I'm just going to throw all this here, and we can kill it. There's always this moment that you can just kill, and a lot of things can happen towards the end of the thing. You can just get rid of it, half of it, even though it's watercolor. I know that's the worry. Everybody's so worried that, oh, that's it. Once I put the color, there's no way back. Yeah, there's tons of things you can do, and these papers can take so much. See, I'm just throwing some of this over here, and now I'm going to go into the darks of her clothing. I'll pull this in a sec so you guys can see the actual color. I'm squinting my eyes. This is really dark. So maybe I'll have my sharp edge right here. So I'm kind of I don't know, I think it's a personality, maybe just very impatient. So that's why I've developed this style, but it works well because you don't have to overthink things, and you don't have to worry too much, and things just kind of happen. And I like that part, so it makes it much easier. And I'm going to lose this edge. I know I said I'm going to have it sharp, but I do change my mind a lot. So I know people do sketches ahead of time, value studies, black and white, turn it this, turn it. Just go, because then you're killing your own enthusiasm in the process. So it is an interesting situation. Just to show you how the colors are, this is what's happening right now. So just the big picture, and I know it looks kind of messy. Can you guys see it? Okay, so very dark clothing, very bright here. See, a lot of color. So there is a little bit of a trap because we can just copy all this color.
What would happen?
If I tilt it? Oh, okay.
Is that better?
If it's better for you guys,
Is
can
that
you see better?
Yes.
You can see the values
She
better.
wants to have it tilted,
Hold
let
on
it
to
tilt.
it for a
Okay,
second.
let me do this. Yeah, that's better because we don't have a sheen, right?
Perfect.
Put this on the-
Oh, okay. Perfect. Yeah, Joe to the
Okay.
rescue.
Yeah.
That's probably better.
All right. Thanks.
Can you guys see better? Okay, and we all know values. Everybody says values, 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 and it's true. Values is the most important thing in the painting. And right now, we are just going to, everything is a medium value right now. So we don't think about the values yet, or at least not consciously. I'm just doing the medium value and kind of blocking things. So a lot of blocking. And medium to dark. I do tend to skip, as I mentioned, this whole light part. Whatever's light, I just leave it, but the most of the time, I'm just going for the medium to dark because you want to keep that spontaneous. Otherwise, too much building, too many layers. And don't get me wrong, I admire hyper-realistic paintings that have taken weeks, hours to create. It's just a completely different approach to watercolor. But this is just another alternative of, of watercolor, of what to do with it. So as you can see, and I know a lot of my students, when they see this stage, they're just scared. They're like, whoa, that is a disaster. That's going to be a disaster. And I'm like, no, 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 don't worry. That's the point. Don't worry. Nobody worries. Go ahead. Somebody asked something. So just the big picture again, don't worry too much, even if things appear, disappear. I'm throwing paint around again. And another thing, I'll try, but it's okay if you fall asleep, don't worry. As long as you're not snoring, then it's good. Anyway, so what did I was going to say? I did tell my students that painting, and watercolor especially, is like creating music. You know how music has quiet moments and it builds up into this boom, big crescendo, and then it's quiet again. So this is how I subconsciously, or maybe consciously now, approach my paintings. I try to have rhythm. Be aware, when we create art, we do create certain rhythms. And the rhythm is, you know, I don't know, I came up with this ta 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 ta, you know, that's the rhythm. So you can have, you know, quiet and then more bubbly and more intense areas. So be aware of all these things. And I know you are, everybody's super professional. You can be easily, all of you be here and doing your own demo, so anyway, I'm very thankful for being invited. Here it is. So my approach usually is create and destroy, well, create and take away. So it's kind of take away things. You put it down and then I kind of take things out and wipe stuff that I want to be a little bit more expressive, and you can even, you know, wipe things. And there's nothing wrong with having a little bit of texture. So it's quite abstract, really, at this point. So it's still being abstract. Woos a lot of edges. I don't think that's the best paper. Sorry, guys, see, because see, I can't lift, but we'll do with it. Sometimes you can do stuff with not such good materials. I was surprised a little bit. I didn't test it, so it's okay. It's just hard to lift. So we are going, we keep going. Now, the best part is the darks. Now I'm gonna go with the darkest dark. This was not dark. And I love all these blooms that are happening. They're great. We can even plop some red, you know, spatter some red. Just start wild. Because if you start timid and then go wild, it's harder. Start wild and then tighten up a little bit here and there. That's my approach. I've tried the other way around and just be more careful. And then it's hard. Once you create something very realistic, then it's hard to kind of break it out, which I do a lot, but it's just not as spontaneous. It kind of looks more intentional. And we want to make it look like it hasn't been too much thought out ahead of time, like spontaneous, like it was done in just one big swipe. That's the whole goal. So we're gonna now add the darks. I'm mixing a whole bunch of colors here. I don't know, I'm just having this dirt tunnel. So it's a blue, there is a purple, there is maybe a brown. We're gonna get a little bit of brown. And I'll get a very, very dark. So I'm starting my reference, and now I'm gonna be a little bit more careful. So from crazy stage, we're going a bit more careful. And again, but keep the spontaneous flow of your brush strokes. I move the brush in all kinds of directions, straight, going flat. It's just, that's a lot of fun. Now we're going to have some more definition here. Almost sketchy. I know it, but we'll build it. It won't be as sketchy as it looks right now. And I do encourage sketching, because that will give you a lot of confidence in your painting too, specifically of how you move your hand. Anyway, so you keep in with the darks. Usually when I have a figure, I ignore the background. If there's houses, here cars, no. Just we focus on the actual image here, and I'm just adding a bit of this whole back stuff. Yeah, it's just, you probably don't see the subtleties, but it's, and I'll pull it up. Okay, so I'm just seeing here, there's like this big blob, a little bit too distracting. So I'm going to take my big brush, more paint, less water, and kind of do this in this direction. So you can just do all kinds of things, even though you already went there before. So now, the best for last, this is not last, so this is just the beginning. So we're gonna go into the face, and I already put kind of a suggestion of the shadow, but we're gonna go into the stronger shadows a little bit more, a little darker. So usually the neck, anything under the chin is the darkest. That's the darkest area. And don't be afraid to have sharp edges sometimes. That's like that cast shadow happening. And always is dark right here where the nose and the eye is. This whole area, the connection, and also the dark shadow continues. So now we have to be a little bit more careful, because sometimes faces, when we paint, and when we're too careful, it can be either overworked or start to be too sharp. And there's some softness usually to the human face. The edges are not always as sharp, so I always use my paper towel and soften some of my edges. Basically, that's how we soften the edges. Just go over the edge and it's soft. So we continue. And of course, looking at my reference, the reference really does tell you what your next step should be. And this red will definitely, reflect into the face. Oh, yeah, there's no red there at all. Sorry. Oh, okay, so I'm just putting pure red right here. That is the reflection of the scarf. And let's put some more color. Not color, but dark, a little bit darker. I know some artists look with magnifying glass into their reference and zoom in, zoom out. Sometimes I'm glad that my photo is not that great in terms of quality. I don't want to zoom in, zoom out unless I'm trying to figure out something about the anatomy exactly. Just stick to the big picture for a while, and then later we'll maybe zoom in into some detail. So let's zoom in. I'm popping a little bit of dark. Don't worry about where the actual eyelid is at this point. Again, still the big picture. We're putting the main shapes. Okay, I'm just softening. push, pull. It's all about pushing, pulling color. I'm just pushing it here to soften edges. The human face is warm, even in the shadow, there's lots of warmth. So I'm using just warm tones of this point, maybe. Certain areas of the human face has some nice warmer and reddish hues, like tip of noses, usually a little bit of red that gives them life, gives a little bit of life. Also ears, these are all the areas where it's all cartilage and kind of the light goes through and definitely gets redder, so that does make it more human. I don't think I see any ears there. So we'll continue with the hair. Hair is a bit cooler. I don't want to mix too many colors, as I said, so I'll just stick to this. Maybe a bit more dry brush. Continues over here. I know there will be a very nice detail over here, which is, as I said, that's the dessert, that's the easy part, and that's fun. You can always take a small brush at the very end and kind of work on this detail here, if you need to, if it helps your painting. The main approach would be less is more. Does it help? Always ask the question, does it do anything to my painting? Does it add any value to the painting at all? Like any excitement, or does it give a message, communicate something, or no? So if it doesn't, just if in doubt, leave it out, right? So these are all the little cliches we'll come up with. So here it's going to go a bit darker. And usually when hair touches the face, it's not sharp. It's a very smooth transition of hair, skin. So I'm still adding a bit of dark. Not getting to the detail yet. Just a little bit here, a little bit there. I work in all areas all at the same time, but generally it's always start with the background first. Because it kind of sets the tone, and the background can really, you can go very, very crazy with that, with the background. So it frees you up, it loosens you, and that's the goal. It's watercolor, it's not acrylic, although I paint oil and acrylic and all other medium in the same way, really. So it's kind of impressionism, really, or expressionism. We want to create movement. I'm just immediately seeing we need to have some stuff. So no fear, not overthinking it, and sometimes we're like, oh, it's not on the exact spot. Oh, it should have been in a different spot. Don't worry, nobody, I always tell my students, nobody's gonna check your reference. Nobody's gonna compare if you really did matched everything perfectly. They will look at your painting though. And if you were not excited while you're painting, your viewer is not going to be excited either. So you need to have fun. But again, don't lose sight of the fundamentals, and they have to be glued into our mind. And the fundamentals are, you know, the values, medium, dark, just be aware of all this. We all know it. You can never go wrong by repeating many, many times. So I'm going to wait for this to dry. Actually, I'm going to add a little bit the lips. Here's some detail. Upper lip is always, I hold my brushes so lightly. I never like squeeze it tight, super light, like that when I paint, like sometimes my brush just flies out. It's so funny. But it's actually adding to the whole flow of everything. I was talking about lips. Okay, so the lips, upper lip is always kind of darker in most of the cases, unless you have a light pointing from below. Usually the light is either above or on the side, so always the upper lip is a little bit darker. And yeah, just fixing some whatever dirt I have on my palette. Have you seen my palette, guys? Just puddles, just puddles. But I
Looking better than it did a while ago.
It's looking better, right? Yeah, it was quite messy and dirty before. But, okay, I just want to make sure that you guys seeing stuff. Okay. So the palettes, what colors, sometimes people ask what colors do you use? There's no really a formula for me of what color. Sometimes I just pop in whatever I have. But try to have the cool and the warm version of each color. So if you have a yellow, I try to have the lemon and the cadmium. If I have a red, I'm going to have a cadmium and the alizarin. The alizarin is more on the cool side. So each color has kind of a warmer versus cooler, and I like to have those. And of course, I keep my darks on one side and my lighter, warmer tones on the other side, and that helps. Now, very important are, for portraits, specifically in this style, these little corners of the mouth. They do tell us what the actual expression is a lot, like the way, these are all the, now subtlety and detail. I keep talking about, being crazy, but it's not just being like sloppy. You're kind of measured, measured crazy in a measured way. We have to have subtle, be aware of all the subtleties in the actual reference. And so little thingies like the corners, the nostrils, the eye, the sprinkle of the eye, whatever it is just super, super, super important. And without being photographic, so we don't have to be photographically correct. So guys, let me know when it's in the midway, when we are midway, so I know if to speed up or slow down, or because I'm not quite aware of where we are. So now I'm going to actually zoom in a little bit because I want to see exactly how her eye is. And definitely dark. I'm adding more darks now. It's under the upper eyelid, always dark. Then there is the folds here, and these are all the dark areas. I did mention here this area, so I'm just adding more dark. Yeah, no stress, no worries. She is a blue-eye lady, very interesting. That's why I find it very fascinating. Her eyes especially just so interesting. So right now I'm just putting a color. Doesn't have to be anything in particular. Doesn't have to be correct. I knew I was going to put you to sleep. It's okay, it's that time of the day. Oh my goodness. So I'm just putting a little bit of dark. See these corners that I was talking about? There's a little bit of a corner. And we are adding some more darks. Sorry if you're seeing the top of my head, shout, because I'm trying to now get into the more detail. And that is my focal point. I think her face, definitely that's going to be the focal point. So I'm adding my darker darks there. I'm still with a very kind of a big brush with a nice tip, but I also have some better brushes for detail. And I can use probably that for this. Okay, and I do use white, that's why I'm not applying ever to the transparent watercolor society. Yeah, I'm sorry. I pop in some white here and there, not a lot, but at the very end, you're gonna see some of my highlights.
We see your head.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Oops. Okay, so I'll keep that. So at the very end, I will pop in some highlights with white. Create and destroy, I just created it, now I'm taking it out, like, just want to keep it all soft and disappearing a little bit. We're adding some darks for the nostrils. Well, we don't quite see her nostrils because that's kind of the shape of her face, her nose, but I'm just still adding dark. There's definitely dark here. We put the corners. And I'm just adding a little color for these earrings. And we don't have to spell everything, including patterns on her clothing. That's when I'll probably use some white. You can, I mask out when I remember to mask out, but masking is just making these very sharp edges everywhere and they're all the same. So I'm losing this fluidity and variety really a lot if I mask, so I try not to mask. I just go for it. I mean, there's all kinds of style of painting, of course. Some could be really nice if they're sharp or more graphic looking. I just like kind of more fluid because that's watercolor after all. So let's think why. I'm gonna have a suggestion now of the jewelry she's wearing. All right. It's just a suggestion, squint your eyes, like see the overall kind of impression of it. I know, sorry, I don't know what's wrong with my voice, something, I think it's nerves. Anyway, here we put some red, a little bit of red now, accent. It's nice for our painting to have these little accents here and there. They shouldn't be too much because they're not accents after all, if they become too much. Just in some key areas, interesting areas. To give you an update on how things are, so I'll get there. That's midway now. We're just kind of in the middle of this whole thing. Now I'm gonna kind of pause at that point and think a little bit, which is strengthening some of my darks. You need to weight your painting a little bit, grounded. As we all know, watercolor does dry lighter, so it does need some reinforcement from time to time and checking our values and just darkening the darks. I hardly ever use black at all. Black only in some pupils or some lines or maybe something little. So this is just, I think, phthalo with brown is a great combination for dark. More dark. And now I want to really have this to be dark because you think about the balance always, of course, in the painting, and some areas do need to be definitely darker. So I'm going back to my 2-inch brush, getting phthalo, Really I try to paint alla prima, meaning no more than 2 layers, like that's kind of the second layer right now. If I put a third layer, I will kill the whole thing. Although, as I said, it can be revived, even if it's completely destroyed. And by destroyed, I mean overworked. That's pretty much when a painting is destroyed. Okay. So I'm just adding a little bit of dark. Then you can step out a bit to see if you need to continue this whole edge. I tend to think that you should not have the same edge for more than 2 inches, really. After 2 inches of paint, the edge has to change to either soft or hard. And that's kind of how the painting looks more vibrant and flowy and going in all kinds of directions. Really, and just not right here. I don't want the eye to go in this light. It's going to take away from the painting, from my focal point. So I'm just adding some of the darks right there. And I'm okay with all these blooms. I would leave them. Normally, so it just gets too tedious if you start fixing things and trying to get rid of certain things. I think those are the best things that are happening in the painting. Just don't get rid of them. Now it's the part where I'm just adding a little bit more definition to my elements, or the body relief that I need to stress. Maybe a little bit more color to the face. This is a bit too stark with the paper. We want to have a bit of like a layer of color. I know I lost all the white almost, but it's okay. Maybe I can just lift a little bit here. Add some more color to my nose. And again, with horizontal part of my brush, I take things out. And the darks are not quite dark. I think it's either the paper or it's my paints. Not quite the best. Sometimes experiment with bad paper, bad paints. See what you can come up with. Actually, it's great because you wouldn't worry. You'll be like, this is not for a competition, this is not for a show. And believe it or not, when you don't have that pressure on yourself, you end up with a great painting. Really, at the end, and you're like, oh, okay, I might as well enter this because it is. So at least it works with me that way. I try not to think about, oh, is that a commission? Now I'm a little bit more worried because you guys watching, but but generally, you know what I mean. I'm sure we all artists have that thing. So now we can pop in some of the bright colors at this point. I'm going to go back to the reds and really, really bring this out because I really love how it's all so nice and bright over here. I want to have things fly all over, but just very quick brush strokes so we don't overwork these areas. They don't look like they've been touched too much. So I'm just I'm amazed at the show. I saw it very quickly. I was late today a little bit. Sorry guys, I didn't attend the previous presentations. I had to take my daughter to Olive Garden competition, and I also saw the show, but it's so amazing. Everybody really, really good. So I'm just adding a little bit of this cast shadow. There is a bit of a sharp edge there for this cast shadow, and just let things be. Not quite what it's there. It's okay. We're just letting it be. Still with a big brush, with brush strokes. Here, periodically popping up, painting, colors, things. Yeah, not the best paper. No, this is not the best paper, but it's okay. I think it's been either sitting in my house for too long. I don't know what's wrong with it, but it's good. It's good for now. It's okay. So here there's something happening. I want to define her shoulder a little bit. At this point, and your painting kind of tells you. This is this. Just a little bit of definition. It has nothing to do with the reference photos. And again, I always try to kill some of the edges so they're not exactly the same everywhere. This dark, this whole thing could be really dark. You just make an executive decision and go for it. We don't overthink it. We don't spend weeks thinking it. We just go for it, and you see it's going to work. Just have confidence in the decision you make. Even if it's not the best decision, you make it work. That's what I always think about my paintings. And of course, there's many that are, I look at them a year later and I thought, oh, what was I thinking? And I was so happy at the moment. Yeah, right. But you can always, go back and kind of attack it and kind of brighten up, throw some paint, make something more spontaneous, just a little bit.
Lyudmila, it's 3 o'clock.
Oh, thank you. Wow, we have a long time. So now I will go, I'll dip into the white a little bit, not too much, but a little bit. And we will introduce some detail. So I have Chinese white here, a little bit of detail. And but mainly on her dress, because I think that's interesting. So definitely that's going to work. I'll pop some here, but you can mainly just take it out of the tube right there. I usually just tap. This is the tap moment. We always, as humans, somehow tend to create patterns always in our paintings. We unconsciously make these patterns, and I always say, no patterns. It should be tap. So whatever that pattern is non-pattern, like random stuff, and that's going to make the painting a little bit interesting. I know it sounds strange, like, what is she talking about? But you guys, I know you know what I'm talking about. Because we can't think quite in words. Words don't work. So a little bit of here, a little bit of there. And I'm just kind of making it up. It's not exactly her pattern of the clothing, but definitely very, very sketchy, and just, this is too big. I'm going to get the rigger brush. Maybe the rigger brush is going to be better for this, with the lines especially. And of course, dry brush it. just a little bit. And that could have easily been masked out and perfectly masked out, but it won't be the same. It's just going to be so tight. And I have painted patterns that are really tight, really precise. I know how to paint tight, guys, I'm telling you, but I don't want to. It just loses. The painting does lose stuff, something, you know. But I'm amazed at artists who can kind of pull it off and make an amazing, fascinating, very, very hyper-realistic painting. So I do appreciate that if they can do it. For some reason, they're not always working. So I like this whole kind of a little bit of a sketchy approach here. We're gonna have this. I'm just imagining. Now I'm just squinting my eyes. I'm seeing something. I'm just seeing something that's going this way, that way. And just gotcha again. We don't have to go overboard. Yeah, I don't need the rest. Now I'm looking at it. I really don't need the rest of this pattern. So you just make the decision as you go. So we're just gonna add some more detail here. Dry brush it. That adds interest. And I always say opposites. Your painting has to have opposites. Big, small, rough, refined, thin, thick. You know, there is all kinds of things, and that's what's going to make it interesting. So think in those terms. If I have, I'm talking to you as if I'm talking to my students. You guys professionals, so you know what I'm saying, right? And you can just tap a little bit of sprinkle here, a little bit of spatter over there.
What kind of white paint are you using?
What? Which one? I'm sorry.
What kind of white paint?
Oh, this is the Chinese white. You can use titanium. That's a little bit, probably more opaque. Not too much, but don't use the white. I mean, I never mix the white with other colors. I just use it to kind of emphasize some highlights or a little bit of, in this case, little patterns and interest and detail. My head, I'm sure. Okay. So far, getting somewhere. So far, it's getting somewhere. And now to create a little bit more interest, as if there's not enough, you can always pop in a little bit of red on this side. I know it's not there. I know it doesn't make any sense. So you have to be super brave if you make a decision like that. So that's why I have to take my big brush, because halfway brave is not gonna do it. You have to be really, really bold. So because I'm seeing all this red here, and now you have to analyze a little bit, of course. So I'm seeing all this red. I'm gonna pop a little bit. But now I'm thinking it just needs like a little bit here. So just go poof, poof, and that's it. Without too much. So we popped it, and let me show you what happened. Like immediately sort of balanced a little bit, this whole big blob of red. We just brought it to the other side. Now, eyes are very important. They are absolutely important, so we should not ignore them. And in this case, I'm really going to see where the location of her highlight is of the eye. So we will put a nice little highlight, but before that, we just need to strengthen the darks. And there is a bit of a dark here that's casting from the light. So I'm going to reinforce that. And also there's the pupils, they're very dark. You can use black. I use my colors, but they can be super black. That's gonna liven it up. Indiana, it will be on the left, Indiana, so it should be symmetrical. Otherwise our face looks all off. I just popped a little highlight right there. And now it's just bringing things up a bit, a little, make it a little livelier. I think this light here is too distracting. So it's nice to look at your painting, also take a picture and look at it in a photograph upside down. And then you'll see so many things are just not needed. So I'm just going to get the big brush again and get rid of all this so it doesn't take away. But now there is a moment when this is you have to be very careful when you do little things like this. I personally try not to go overboard with the analytical because you can easily lose the spontaneity. So keep it sketchy, not too, but finish. You know, there is a thin line between sketchy and finish. You know, you know what I mean. Anyway, so I know there is this green where I don't see anywhere, and it should be somewhere. I either kill that green and turn it into something else, like blue maybe, or not blue, yellow rather, because green doesn't go very well with other colors. It should be either dominant everywhere in the painting or should be minimal in the painting. That's my theory after lots of trial and error. Every time I see lots of green, I mean not lots of green, but like green, like in here, just somehow doesn't go with everything else, with the whole palette. So it just gets too much. You just get the rainbow, it's too much. So I'm popping in some yellow, so that is my pretty much second layer in this section. And I'm popping in some yellow here. So things have to communicate. Everything has to be part of the whole. And with the big brush, I'm going to put a little touch of this, and a little touch of that, right? So without overworking the light, step back. But actually this is good because I see it monochromatically and I check to see if my values are okay. Like I have the darks and it's all unified. The painting has to be unified, meaning it's not, you know, everywhere and the eye just jump around too much. You can have more than one focal point, in my opinion. Who said it has to be one? You can have 3 focal points as long as there is a degree of priority of importance. Right? They're not all equally important. Yeah, this, you're getting somewhere, okay. So I always like to throw in some spatter. You can even use white, I use white sometimes to spatter things to kind of make it fun. Well, imagine she's moving and things are moving and the molecules in the air are moving, everything is moving. So why not a little bit of this. It's like cooking. Sometimes painting could be like cooking. You like sprinkle a little, but don't follow any recipes. Like cooking, free flow cooking without recipe. Just I found this in the kitchen, so I'm throwing a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Hopefully it tastes all right at the end. But, you know, the artists are funny people, right? Just a normal person will. Okay. So I'm just popping like a little bit of accents. I have this very nice yellow, lemon yellow from a brand. I'm not going to say it, maybe because we have sponsors, but it's very opaque. So it's not white. I mean, it's not, it's just yellow, lemon yellow that is so opaque that I love to use that as my accents and little pop-up things. So this is the phase of ta-ta-ta, like the little bubbly part. I have my big shapes, I have my little shapes, and we have to have some miniature shapes. As long as things are not overdone, I think the whole idea comes across if you follow this whole scenario. So I'm just going to go here, and this yellow is really, it's like, I like how it just comes out. So these are, I know a lot of you are very loose painters too, so you totally understand the whole technique and the whole approach. And it's amazing how things are just a suggestion. We are not spelling out anything. It's all a suggestion. And really having fun while painting. So I can paint another painting. Second one. I think I'm finished. I think this is almost finished. Thank you guys. No, not quite. It's not quite finished, but I'm afraid that I may actually work it at this point. But definitely it does need more. And now it's just the itty bitty part where we put some, color.
Lyudmila, do you often put your paintings aside because you're not sure whether you're finished or not, and then come back to them, or do you have a point, as often an artist does, where they go, I'm done?
Yeah, I'm more of that because I like to finish it in one set, like in one going, and the next day I will look at it. If there's something outrageously wrong with it, then I take the 2-inch brush and unify. So it's all about unify. As I said, and I unify with the 2-inch brush. Even if I worked a lot of detail, I spent some time, I would just be, okay, this is too much, I'm just gonna get rid of it. But with a big color, but normally I tend to finish it just quickly and get it over with. I know, it sounds like, okay, she's just too tired. No, seriously, it just works better, especially if you want to keep your spontaneity, because very scary to overwork it. Then you have to go with the attack and punches and 2-inch brush.
You take out a painting and go, wow, that's good, after not having seen it for a while, or the other way around.
That's right. It does work that way. And sometimes I'm not too crazy with it when it's all wet. Next day it looks better. Somehow the paint interacts with the paper overnight, or it's the paint fairy comes in at night and it does something with it. So it looks better the next day. I swear, there is some magic to this whole process. Something is going on. But yeah, it's funny how it works. So at this point, I'm just gonna touch here, I'm gonna touch there, trying not to be too intentional again, not to lose the spontaneity. Things are flying, flowing. That's pretty much it. And believe it or not, I can paint a second one, but I don't want to really put you to sleep again with no tape. Just kind of brighten up this jet color right here. And you can be super abstract. I love being abstract all the way to the end because seriously, you're not going to lose anything. You'll lose if you overwork it and you go like fuss too much with it. That's when you go into the losing mode. But going with a big brush and just popping things, you'll be happy with the result. That's my only advice for artists. And strengthening your shadows, your darks definitely helps always. So every time I see things are too light or they're drying light, you just reinforce them a little bit.
You always paint large paper, that size paper?
Yeah, most of the time, yeah, 18 by 24, 16 by 20. When I go smaller sometimes, but it's just a little bit too confining. You can't do the 2-inch brush technique. So only maybe if I'm sketching up figures or doing little thingies. But generally, I think 18 by 24, 16 by 20, 12 by 16 or whatever, half sheet, 15 by 20, that's probably working all right. If it's a landscape. For figures, I like to work a little bit bigger, larger format, because there's stuff. There's stuff. And I know you guys, you work big. A lot of you work full sheets, so I know we're on the same wavelength, kind of. But not to overwork it. And the face right now pretty much is like one layer, a little bit 2 layers, but that's it. No teeth. I never paint, teeth. That destroys everything. It's all a suggestion, really. The mind makes up the teeth. And it shows what's happening. Unless, that's it. That's the whole theme of the thing. But, that's really the case. So, I'm just popping a little bit of detail. Maybe those fingers here need some definition at this point. Sometimes when we see something in our reference, it's not quite clear, and some of my students, they just go into investigation detective mode, and I'm like, if you can't see it, just take the 2-inch brush and get rid of it. You can't see it, your viewer is not going to see it, people are going to wonder, what is that? Like, it's going to look weird, like, is that a snail or octopus, or is she holding something? It's not working. Like 2-inch brush is your savior. That's it. If you can't see it, nobody's going to see it. So, like, unify, and big picture, always the big picture. Unfortunately, my paper is not the best, so I apologize for a bit dull. I think my colors came out a little bit dull. And you can have things, I usually have also things dripping and paint, like the drips. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lyudmila.
Are we too early? 3:20, oh, perfect.
Yeah, we're in good
So
shape.
we're in good shape. I know.
Okay, guys, that's pretty much it for today.
Okay,